Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a sophomore at Cornell studying finance with minors in real estate and design, and part of the Cornell Investment Banking Club on campus. And I recently just recruited for investment banking, like real estate roles within like private equity and some other buy side roles as well.
And so, when obviously you were in a campus club and had access to those resources, and then we connected and you decided to go ahead and work with me, can you just walk me through kind of the decision-making process for why you thought that would be a good idea to kind of have both to help
Yeah,
support you in the process?
yeah. I think I'm again like really grateful for being part of the club on campus, just because it's a lot of like support, a lot of resources, and generally just the community. It's really nice to have people to default to when you're going through recruitment. Definitely not something you can do alone. I think that said, what really stood out was that my club on campus was all students. At the time, I guess like sophomores, juniors, seniors who did the internship recently recruited. And while that's super helpful, I really wanted someone who maybe had more expertise when it came to like actually understanding what interviewers were looking for when they were answering questions. How does a higher view screening actually work? Just because it's one thing to hear it from the student experience, but another thing to hear it from the person who's actually reviewing it. So I think that's what made a big difference.
And in terms of what working together was like and what you found most useful, how would you describe that?
Yeah. Working together was super fun, and it's just super nice to, again, like have someone that I knew was like kind of there to help me the whole time. Just like I guess like mentally a big relief.
Now let's talk about networking, which is like something that I think is very ambiguous before you go through it. What do you think were some of like the things that helped you in terms of like doing well on those calls or like knowing how to like really perform well in terms of like the work that we did?
When it came down to like again hearing your experience as to what it's like to receive these chats, and understanding how to maybe word my questions better so that they were kind of giving me the answers I wanted to hear, but they weren't generic. I kind of realized going through that these analysts or whoever I'm talking to probably get a lot of chat requests in a
Yep.
day. And so if you can ask the question or frame it in a more interesting way that they actually have to think about it, and it's not like a question they've heard a bunch of times, is super helpful.
And then on the behaviorals, talk to me about like the transformation that you saw and like what we were able to workshop together that got you to the point where you landed.
Hmm. I mean, I think even thinking of like the our process, the first thing we worked on was like to tell me about yourself, like the why, and that was something we started super early on and kept like refining over the course of months. And I think it was really helpful because it actually gave me perspective into the opportunities I was applying to, or like how I could like actually pitch myself when I was networking. And I think that was obviously super helpful in like coming up with a very cohesive story. But then in terms of behaviorals, I guess the way I delivered them previously, they were like fine, very I
Mm-hmm.
guess on the generic side. But we really added a lot of like originality, whether it's through the story choice. So not just talking about like a group project you did in like X class, but something like genuinely more interesting and something I think I would be happier speaking to in an interview. And then adding like takeaways that genuinely show like thought, like you being thoughtful about the process,
Yeah.
you having something like unique and insightful to contribute. I think that was super helpful and made my behaviorals like a lot more interesting and like easier honestly to deliver.
Going back to my program, if you had to kind of boil it down to like the most helpful things about it for you, what would you say that would be?
Hmm. Um, I think first just having like a much more experienced set of eyes look over my mock hire reviews, my resume. There's just a lot that I couldn't pick up on, or a lot that like other students wouldn't be able to pick up on. Again, like going back to like my resume, I think it's super strong now and genuinely a lot of the I'd say basically all the interviews I landed, except for maybe like two or three, were not done through networking whatsoever. I had actually like never chatted those firms, and so I'd assume it was very much due to my resume. So that was really shocking how much it could actually make a difference. Um, I'd say the second thing is just kind of going to your point earlier, the iteration and actually saying things out loud. It made a real difference to like actually have to speak to someone and say my behaviorals. I know a lot of my friends will kind of like mock each other, but it's not like the same feeling. I guess just to like practice interviewing with your friends super helpful, but actually getting to like get your feedback and have to practice it every week was incredibly helpful.
You don't have to do places, but I guess like
Hmm.
how many early insights programs did you get? How many first rounds did you get? And like how did that look across like the different verticals that you were interested in?
Yeah, I think I did two early insights programs and they translated into interviews, and so that was super helpful. I did like officially three first rounds for banking. I actually received some more after I signed. And then in terms of buy side, I had hedge fund process, um, real estate private equity, and then two credit, like private credit roles.
Okay, so probably around like 10 first rounds maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
And then what about super days?
So I actually got like three super days, but just like officially completed one and was happy with that, and so I signed there. I'll be at Ducera Partners next summer. We'll be doing like restructuring special situations.
And last question, if someone was on the fence about working with me, what would you
Hmm.
say?
Yeah, no, it was definitely super, super helpful, and I recommend it. I guess I was in that position where I had to like make a decision about whether I wanted to, and truly it did come down to like having someone who's very experienced, like hearing about you, like sitting down, watching the high reviews when you're at Blackstone, um, or like you understanding like what's being asked from the questions is so helpful because I think again, like recruitment's stressful. A lot of the things students do is just a lot of speculation. And so I think you can always have your theories on like what the interview wants or like what makes a successful candidate. But it's helpful. It's like beyond helpful to actually understand what it is and um, not be like speculative about it. I think as stressful as my recruitment process was, it would have been a lot more stressful if I didn't actually like if I was still stuck in that speculative mode and like thinking,
Yeah,
oh,
just trying
like,
to guess.
yeah, it's like trying to guess. And then I think it's also just knowing, again, like someone's there. Super helpful. Like, I know I could like text you whenever. And as the processes went on, like, I think at first I was kind of like I would kind of update you during our weekly meetings. I wouldn't like text you as much, but as the processes went on, I would just like text whenever they happened, or as I had questions, would ask, and um, it's just so so helpful. Like I know I wouldn't have been able to like land a lot of interviews without your help, so
Well,
super grateful.
that's not true, but thank you. I appreciate that.